Thank you very much, Anil, for that very, very generous introduction and all my friends here. I've really been moved by, looking at these 2 days of hectic activity in the other room and here, listening to people, the ideas, the kind of collaborations which are being established. And ultimately, the whole game or the aim of this entire effort is to ensure some kind of, importance, the work, the people at the ground level. So yesterday when we heard Chetna Lala Sinha and how she has organized women to, get into a banking part and how that sustainable, kind of effort has been done, it's really moving to see. And I have always believed that technologies are merely enablers. Technologies are agnostic to the purpose in some sense. But if a technology can help a poor person, if the technology can help the mankind, that is really worth it. Howsoever sophisticated a technology is, if it doesn't help people, then it's not really useful, it's not really worth it. So that is my vantage point, and as Anil said, I have been in public service for about 4.5 decades now, 45 years. I joined in the year 1978, the Indian Administrative Service, and I've been working in remote areas of Bihar and Jharkhand, many of you may be familiar with. And I have been very lucky in some sense that the entire journey of our nation in the digital space, somehow I have been a part of that. I have become a part of that. It's not as if, I started and as bureaucrats, we don't have any freedom to choose what we do, but somehow or the other, by coincidence or whatever you may say, by good luck, I have been a part of those journeys. You'll be surprised to know that, I purchased my first computer in the year 1984. Most of you might not have been born then. And, I had the fascination, and I always have believed that somehow technology can make lives easier. Somehow technology can facilitate people. Somehow technology can reduce friction, the bureaucratic friction which happens. Somehow technology can disintermediate the bureaucracy from, people can be empowered by technology to do their own things. And that is the direction in which I have been kind of working. And, we started a number of applications in the state level. At that time, there was no internet. So we had those disjointed, disconnected systems running on the MS-DOS, Microsoft disk operating system, and you had some machines which were about 6.5-inch floppy, which had the operating system as also the, database or whatever. So those were the initial days, but from there, my belief that technology can be a great enabler and in public service it can be very useful had started becoming more and more robust. And somehow then, at maybe in 2009, I had the opportunity to work in Aadhaar, the UID Authority of India. And when we started doing it, what I want to share with you is that it is pretty difficult to bring change, especially in a system which is as large as government. To really introduce change, to tell that, this is something which is good, to convince people is really very, very difficult. But once the change takes place, it has wonderful effect and it has transformational impact. So when we started doing the Unique Identity Project of India, it was not named Aadhaar then, everybody started saying, what is it? I mean, what's so new about this thing which you are doing? Ultimately, people do have identity papers. They have ration card. They have, maybe a driving license. They have voter ID card. Why do you want to create another ID? So one, typical response of a bureaucracy is that it has already been done. What you are doing has already been done. So therefore, it is worthless doing it. The second, argument which people did give at that time was that it is impossible to do. After all, people have not been able to create uniqueness in a population of millions of people. And what you are talking about is creating uniqueness of identity in 1.3 billion people. How is it possible? It's technologically impossible to do. So that was another, argument. Third was, this is really a worthy effort? What you are doing it is really worth doing? Why are you spending so much of public money? Because after all, this is going to have about $1.5 billion is the estimated budget of this project. And why are you spending this much of money? A poor country cannot afford this kind of, budget. And therefore, you don't do it. It's worthless doing. The last argument, which was actually very, very powerful and potent argument, was you have no authority to do it. It is the Interior Ministry, it's the Home Ministry which will do the identification and, registration of people. Who are you, a mere outfit of a planning commission, the then planning commission, now Niti Aayog? Who are you who can do this kind of project? But then, we had lots and lots of, believe me, the kind of difficulties which we had, the civil society. There are people who were thinking that we will end up giving, citizenship to all the Bangladeshis all the Bangladeshis. There were another set of people who were saying that we will create us all within a state. We'll surveillance, do everything. Surveillance will happen through this digital identity. Lot of people were opposing it. NGOs were saying that you will exclude poor people from the benefit delivery system. But then we were convinced that in India there are a large number of people who do not have any provable identity. And we have to provide that identity. That's number one. And number two, there are benefit delivery systems where people are gaming the systems by creating multiple and ghost identities. And therefore, we need to have a system which can ensure that a person has one identity and he has one provable identity. And believe me, 40% of Indians, people do not know this, 40% of Indians did not have any provable identity. Their identity was created on the basis of, some letter from Pradhan, some letter from MLA saying that I know this person, this is so and so. So this is how we ended up doing project, this Aadhaar. And that, somehow became successful. If it was not successful, believe me, we would all have been in jail. I can tell you this much because, the Standing Committee of Parliament also, they kind of listened to some of the experts and they decided that this is a project, you can read that report. This project is a useless project. So basically what happens is that introducing technology in a public delivery system is an extremely challenging task. But at the same time, it is a risk worth taking. It is a task worth doing. And that I think is the lesson which comes out of it. And believe me, there are bureaucrats, as you heard Mr. Krishnan in the morning, I believe, here he was. There are bureaucrats who basically understand the power of, and now of course, more and more bureaucrats understand. This is the world which has, changed during the last 2 decades or so. So that is one. And secondly, then we did UPI, the Unified Payment Interface. And you guys know that who was opposing UPI? The State Bank of India, the Paytm. These guys were saying, we don't want any, we will control we will do the entire payment system for the country. So what we said was, look, we need to have no entry barriers. We need to have a democratic system. We need to have an interoperable system. One friend of ours was talking about interoperability. This is very important, and we want to have a scalable system. We want to have a frugal system. We want to have a system based on open standards, open APIs, open source. So these were some of the attributes, and frugal. So that, Aadhaar cost only 100 rupees per identity. UK's ID card, which was shelved later, it cost 135 British pounds per ID card. So that's the way, it is not as if yesterday, I think Chetna was saying that, we should not give poor solutions to poor people. We must have very, very robust, so it's a cutting edge, robust technology. It's not as if we have compromised on technologies. So this is something which we did UPI, and then of course, we have done now, we did CoWIN lately in the digital, backbone of our India's vaccination program. So that happened. Now we are doing ONDC, we are doing ABDM, and now there is a tremendous amount of acceptability in the government about technology. And therefore, I think this is, you will not believe, 5 years back in TRAI, we introduced blockchain. And why did we do blockchain introduction? Is that the spam calls and those calls which were coming, they were taking too much of time to respond, the telecom operators. And we said, why don't we put up every complaint on a blockchain platform and let the telcos, kind of read from that and take immediate action. So therefore, it's a completely real-time solution because you can't afford to be delays in this. And that is how there are, I've been hearing since yesterday, there are large number of opportunities in the government. While I don't understand so much the startups and other kinds of things because I've been a babu throughout my life and I'm not really a businessman or a startup fellow. But I do understand the scale which will happen. And it is only the government, it is only the public service delivery systems which can provide you the kind of scale which is needed for making societal change. And that scale will happen. That scale will be there. And there are multiple systems. For example, the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission is a program which seeks to ensure that every patient must have access to his or her health records so that he can create a longitudinal history. And when he goes to a doctor, he or she goes to a doctor, the doctor is able to see with the consent of the patient the entire health record so that the diagnosis is better, the treatment is better. And that framework has been created, which is privacy preserving. And as you know, in the health space, the most important part is privacy. People don't want to show their health record to somebody unintended, somebody can see the health record. No, I don't want my health record. I want a complete control on my health record. So the kind of ecosystem, the kind of architecture. One more thing which I have learned, and I think that's something which all the startups and all the people who are entrepreneurs here must understand. Architecture is extremely, extremely important, friends. Design is extremely, extremely important. If you do a wrong foundation, wrong design, believe me, it will be very difficult to undo it later. And therefore, what we architected the health program is essentially how can it be privacy preserving? How can it be that the patients have the complete control on the record? How can it be scalable? How can we ensure it's a federated data structure? We don't create a whole, set of all the data of the health records and everything brought together at one place. It should be federated. It should be realizable and visible at the time of requirement. So whenever a doctor requires, immediately it should be fetched from the hospitals and from the service providers. So this is the kind of, how can we create a health claims exchange where the insurance, sort of settlement of insurance claims can happen very fast. And the response to all this is digital, number one. Number two, to ensure that the patient has the control on his records, nobody else. I think technologies like Web3 will be absolutely useful. Where do you keep these records? You don't keep these records in some government big database. Why don't you keep these records on a blockchain, which actually makes it accessible for the patients to just, they can access the record and make it visible to the doctor. So essentially, there are large number of opportunities in the health space, in agriculture, in, many other spaces where you have the blockchain part. And what is important is, while we continue to do this, private sector work, and I'm certainly the solutions are going to be used. Many of these will be used in the public sector domain. At the same time, I think there is also a need to work with the public sector, work with the state governments. There are many state governments that are very progressive. Government of Karnataka, for example, and Bangalore is there, and many people, they've been very, very progressive, and they have done many things which are the first of their kind, So those government of Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, these are very, very progressive, state government. And they will have multiple applications, whether it's a matter of land records, whether it is agriculture, whether it is health, irrigation, and then the carbon credits. Wherever you require A, complete control on the record which I own, B, non-repudiability, which means when I made an entry, I can't say, no, I didn't do this. So it's like a digital signature. So non-repudiability, then of course immutability, you can't change the record. So these kinds of properties which are required in multiple things, I compare the blockchain like a government file. And you will be surprised to know how can government files be compared to a blockchain. See, when I write a file and then I send my file to my joint secretary or my other officer, the file's movement is recorded in a register, manual register or digital now, in somebody's, in my office. And my PA signs that. And the other guy who receives it also signs it. And also the other. So basically, if you want to take away a page of a file, the records will be at multiple places. So you can't forge it. If you have to change it, you have to get the consensus and collaboration of all the guys who are involved in that chain. So essentially that kind of, consensus building, non-repudiability, immutability, these are properties which many public service delivery systems require. And there I think we need to remodel our systems to leverage this technology which will provide us beautiful attributes which are currently absent. Somebody can change my record and, nobody knows who changed the record. That's not done. So basically in digital identity, in digital payment systems, in health systems, these technologies will be very useful. So my advice to Anil, which we keep on having that, is that, somehow let's make it for people. Let us work this technology and let us make this technology people-centric. People are at the center of this technology, whether it is getting carbon credits or any other kind of work. Then, it will have huge impact and people will appreciate that, yes, this is something which is coming to our benefit. And I can tell you the number of examples are huge and we keep on deliberating all the time. So that's what I wanted to say, that here is a technology which is extremely useful from the public services standpoint. It is definitely very powerful, enabler technology, and I think we should find appropriate use cases for this technology so that it can make difference in people's lives. Thank you once again for inviting me here, and I have been really fascinated by the kind of empathy which all the speakers here have. They've all been people-centric, how we can help the people with the technology. And thank you very much and for giving me this opportunity for the last 2 days. Thank you. Bye.